96 minutes. That's all it took to shatter one team's dream and resurrect another's. Five-time world champions, staring down the most humiliating exit of their lives. A goal down. Outthought, outfought. Tens of thousands of fans sitting in stunned, disbelieving silence. And in that moment, nobody, and I mean nobody, saw what was coming. This is the story of how Brazil clawed their way back from the very edge of disaster. In a knockout tie, a whole lot of people are already calling the best of the entire round. The most decorated nation in the history of the sport, against a samurai blue side, absolutely starving to make history. What happened out there had the whole planet holding its breath. So let's rewind to the start. Brazil rolled into the knockouts as group winners, unbeaten through the group stage. They opened with a 1-1 draw, rescued by a stunner from Vinicius Jr. Then they handled Haiti 3-0, Cunha and Vini again. And in the group finale, Brazil steamrolled Scotland 3-0, another Vini brace +1 from Cunha. 7 goals, 7 points, top of the group on a goal difference that blew everyone else away. Vinicius scored in all 3 group games, 4 goals in total, the first Brazilian to find the net in every single group match at a World Cup in over 2 decades. And about that last golden run, Neymar was back too, returning after more than 900 days away, coming on late in the win over Scotland. On the other side, Japan came through as group runners-up behind the Netherlands, beating Tunisia 4-0, drawing the Dutch 2-2 and Sweden 1-1 for 5 points. But there was bad news. Starman Takefusa Kubo was out, injured all the way back in the opener. Even so, coach Hajime Moriyasu still had a disciplined, hungry team on his hands. And here's a detail that should have terrified Brazil. Japan had already beaten them 3-2 in a friendly not long before, after Brazil had led 2-0. That was Japan's first ever win over Brazil in the entire history of the fixture. So no, they did not fly to Houston to sightsee. Now, the lineups. Carlo Ancelotti set Brazil up in a 4-3-3, Alisson Becker in goal. The back line: Danilo, Marquinhos, Gabriel, Magalhães and Douglas Santos. The midfield 3, Casemiro anchoring the base, with Bruno Guimaraes and Lucas Paqueta. Up top, Ryan on the right, Matheus Cunha through the middle, and Vinicius Jr on the left. Japan came out in a 3-4-3. In goal, Zion Suzuki, born in the States but flying the flag for Japan, and playing his club football over in Italy. The back 3, Hiroki Ito, Shogo Taniguchi, and Takahiro Tomiyasu. Wingbacks, Doan and Nakamura. In the engine room, Kamada and Kaishu Sano. The front line, Junya Ito, Ueda and Maeda. Kickoff, high noon in Houston. The Brazilian drums never stopped for a single second. The stadium was drowning in yellow and green. When Neymar flashed up on the big screen from the bench, the whole place erupted. The air was hotter than a Texas afternoon, and Brazil came out swinging. Inside 2 minutes, Bruno Guimaraes forced Zion Suzuki into a save. First corner to Brazil, and the pressure was already on. 5th minute, Suzuki races to the edge of his box to punch it clear. 7th minute, he flies again to claim a set piece. Japan's young keeper was showing exactly 0 nerves. 10th minute, chaos in the Japan box. Brazil whip it in, and Japan block 3 shots in a row, including one from Bruno Guimaraes dead center. Brazil were sitting on around 70% of the ball, but Japan's shape was airtight. And here's the cruel truth about this sport: possession doesn't win you a thing. 14th minute, Kaishu Sano clatters Vinicius and picks up a yellow. From the free kick, Cunha drills one low, but Suzuki flies across to deny him. Brazil were up 4-0 on shots, but the scoreboard still read nothing. 23rd minute, big controversy. Sano, already on a yellow, flew into Cunha just outside the box. Cunha crumpled. The Brazilians were livid, screaming for a second yellow. But the referee ruled he got the ball first. No card. Brazil were still fuming when the ref called a cooling break, and then, folks, The thing nobody saw coming. Danilo, Brazil's veteran defender, plays a lazy pass right through the middle. Kaishu Sano reads it, jumps the lane like a hawk. He collects it near the center circle and hits the gas. Casemiro, the man whose entire job is to snuff this out, gets brushed aside so easily it's almost embarrassing. The Mainz midfielder just keeps charging, and not a soul can lay a glove on him. Then he lets it rip, right foot, low and hard, from outside the box. The ball screams into the far corner, past Alisson Becker. 1-0, Japan. And here's the kicker. It was Sano's first ever international goal. On the biggest stage and on earth, against the most decorated team in the sport, the Brazilians froze. That ocean of yellow went dead silent. And from that second on, Japan played like they believed. The Japanese drums pounded behind the goal. They controlled the tempo, and Brazil got shoved backward. Every Brazilian pass started looking ragged, nervous, rushed. The Brazil fans groaned every time a ball went sideways or a move fell apart. Halftime, Japan 1, Brazil 0. And the unthinkable question, for the first time in their history, were we actually about to watch Brazil crash out this early? This was the darkest moment, and this is where the whole story turns. Because this is where Carlo Ancelotti reminded the world exactly who he is. The man with 4 Champions League titles. The man Brazil's federation hired for one single reason. He manages the biggest nights on the planet like nobody alive. In the dressing room at the break, he didn't panic. He didn't scream. He asked his players for cool heads, big hearts, and clear minds. After the match, he revealed what he told them. Quote, "At half-time, I told them to be patient because sooner or later we were going to score. The important thing was to hold our shape." End quote. And then he went to work. Move number 1. Lucas Paqueta limped out of the tunnel in tears, ice strapped around his ankle, an injury forcing him off. Now, most coaches would just slot in another creative midfielder and keep everything the same. Not Ancelotti. He threw on Endrick, a 19-year-old kid. And this wasn't a like-for-like swap. This was a change in philosophy. A striker for a midfielder. Brazil morphed from a 4-3-3 into something like a 4-2-4 whenever they had the ball, cramming an extra spearhead into the opposition box. Ancelotti had cracked the code. The problem wasn't creativity in midfield, it was a shortage of bodies in the box. Japan had 5 defenders back there, so you flood more men forward to smash that wall down. Move number 2 was quieter, but just as deadly. Ancelotti changed where Vinicius Jr lived on the field. In the first half, Vinny kept drifting inside, into the left half space, where Japan's packed defense just swallowed him whole. In the second half, Ancelotti pushed him back out wide, right onto the touchline, one-on-one, in the face of the Japanese fullback. That single tweak flipped the entire game. Vinny started dribbling, exploding past people, dragging defenders out to the wing, and tearing open acres of space in the middle for Casemiro, Guimaraes and Endrick. Second half kicks off, and Brazil come flying. 50th minute Endrick, fresh legs, threads a dangerous ball in, but Vinny can't quite reach it before Suzuki smothers it. Japan was scrapping for their lives, but they were getting overrun, and everyone could feel it. 52nd minute, Cunha cracks one off Suzuki. The kid can't hold it, but he claws it to safety. 54th minute, and the entire stadium was sure Brazil had leveled it. Guimaraes heads it, Suzuki parries, the ball spills loose. Casemiro pounces, heads it goalward, into a wide-open net. But Takehiro Tomiyasu, with a reflex that makes no earthly sense, heads it off the line. Twice cleared off the line, same phase. The stadium is howling, and somehow it stays out. But Casemiro was not about to waste a third bite at the apple. 56th minute, Gabriel Martinelli, the Arsenal centre-back, storms up the right and whips in a cross that is just perfect, right to the back post. Casemiro climbs higher than every soul in blue and hammers the header. Up, over, Zion Suzuki, and into the net. 1-1. The place detonates. Tens of thousands of fans, most of them in yellow, up on their feet as one. Now hit pause with me right here, because this goal means everything. Casemiro, the veteran, Brazil's worst player in the first half, the man Sano waltzed past for the opener, and now he's the man who dragged them level. And it was the direct payoff of a gutsy call. Ancelotti kept Casemiro on when half the world wanted him hooked after that first half nightmare. He trusted the old Lion's instinct and his power in the air, and Casemiro repaid him with a goal. After the match, Casemiro said, quote, "I knew the chance would come. The whole team stayed calm. When you score, the team scores. When you suffer, the team suffers," end quote. And that was an emotional dam breaking wide open. The equalizer unleashed a yellow tidal wave. 2 minutes later, Vinicius nearly scored the goal of the whole tournament. He dances through the Japanese defense in the box, spins clear, and tries to chip it over Suzuki. The keeper gets a single fingertip on it, just enough to nudge the ball onto the post and away. Vini grabs his head. The whole stadium grabs its head. Brazil now owned this game, top to bottom. 64th minute. Ueda swings a big shot from distance, but it's straight at Alisson Becker. The Brazil keeper shoves it away, and no Japan player can reach the rebound. And that, right there, was basically Japan's last gasp of the entire half. And here comes Ancelotti's third move. 66th minute. Off comes Cunha, on comes Gabriel Martinelli. Yet another Arsenal man. Martinelli, quick feet, razor-sharp movement off the ball. Precisely the weapon you need to carve up a Japanese defense that's been grinding at full tilt for nearly 70 minutes and starting to run on fumes. After the game, Ancelotti dropped a fascinating little detail. He said, quote, "I told Neymar that if we hadn't leveled it by a certain point, I would bring him on," end quote. But Casemiro had already leveled it, so Ancelotti went with Martinelli instead of Neymar. Think about that. Neymar, an icon, stayed glued to the bench. That was a seriously brave call, betting on Martinelli's fresh legs and speed over a living legend like Neymar. Only Ancelotti would dare to make that call, and only Ancelotti would be proven right for making it. From there to the final whistle, Brazil laid siege to Japan's box. The shot count was now a total landslide. Zion Suzuki saved everything, punching away crosses, flinging himself across his line. He finished the night with 4 saves. 85th minute, Brazil blazed 2 straight shots over the bar. 88th, Vini causes mayhem on the left again, beats 2 defenders, loses it, wins it right back, earns a free kick. He waves his arms, begging the crowd for more. The whole place shakes, but the ball just will not go in. The ref signals 6 minutes of stoppage. If nothing changes, we're going to extra time. 90+1, and Casemiro, the hero, crumples to the turf with a leg injury. He has to come off, another Brazilian sub. Precious seconds bleed away on the treatment. But here's the twist, it's that very injury that forces the ref to add even more time. And then, the 96th minute. The moment people will be telling their grandkids about. Endrick, that 19-year-old, robs the ball on the edge of the Japan box. He slides it quickly to Bruno Guimaraes. The Newcastle captain collects it in the gap between Japan's 2 banks of defenders, that tiny zone the pros call the pocket, the one only the smartest midfielders on earth ever learned to find. And in a heartbeat, Bruno Guimaraes threads a perfect ball into the path of Gabriel Martinelli. The Arsenal forward takes it in the box, 1 touch to set himself, then curls a right-footer low into the far corner. It skids past Zion Suzuki. He gets a hand to it, but can't keep it out. Off the inside of the post, and in. 2-1, Brazil. And Gabriel Martinelli is off, sprinting to the corner flag with his arms wide. The entire team buries him, the Brazil fans screaming, crying, hugging total strangers. The drums go absolutely feral. Martinelli, voice still trembling afterward, said, quote, "I can't find the words for the joy in my heart. Seeing all those fans on their feet, my parents, my friends, I just can't explain it." End quote. And on the other side of the field, the Japanese players sank to the ground. Some on their knees, some face down in the grass, tears pouring down their faces. And Carlo Ancelotti, even in his moment of glory, walked straight over to Japan to console every single one of their players. The image of him wrapping up centre-back Taniguchi, sobbing on his shoulder, will become one of the most beautiful pictures in the whole tournament. 90+7. Japan bring on Koki Ogawa for Daisen Maeda, but it's way too late. 90+8. Bruno Guimaraes comes off for Danilo Santos. And then, deep into stoppage time, after the clock ran on for every last delay, the final whistle screams. Brazil 2, Japan 1. And this was Gabriel Martinelli's 5th goal for his country, 3 of them scored right here on American soil. Then came the twist. The Man of the Match award went not to Martinelli, but to Casemiro, the man who went from villain to hero, the one who dragged Brazil level when they were flat on the canvas. Now let's pull back and see the whole picture, because this game was special for a reason. This was the first time Brazil had come from behind to win a World Cup knockout game since they beat England in a quarter-final more than 2 decades ago. Think about that. A whole generation, the Ronaldo, Rivaldo, Ronaldinho era, pulled off that comeback, and Brazil had to wait for the Vinicius Jr, Martinelli and Endrick generation to finally do it again. It was also the first time these two had met at a World Cup in 20 years, since Germany, when Brazil hammered Japan 4-1 in the group stage. Now for a delicious bit of irony, Japan's coach that day was none other than Zico, the Brazilian legend who moved to Japan decades ago to play for Kashima and helped build the entire foundation of Japanese professional soccer. The bond between these two footballing nations runs deeper than most people ever realize. Brazil is home to millions of people of Japanese descent, the largest Japanese community anywhere outside Japan. But what truly made this one a game for the ages was Carlo Ancelotti's chain of decisions. Let's run it back one last time. Decision 1. Bringing on Endrick for Paqueta at the break, flipping the shape from a 4-3-3 to a 4-2-4, loading bodies into the box. The direct result, a flood of chances inside the 18, leading straight to the equalizer. Decision 2. Keeping Casemiro on despite a brutal first half, trusting the old Warriors' nose for goal. The result? Casemiro's towering header for 1-1. Decision 3. Dragging Vinicius from the half space out to the touchline, shattering Japan's defensive structure and prying open the middle. The result? Brazil suffocated the Japan half for the entire second period. Decision 4. Throwing Martinelli on instead of Neymar. Younger, faster, tailor-made to puncture a gassed-out defense. The result? The winner, deep in stoppage time. 4 decisions, 4 bullseyes. That is not luck, folks. That is elite coaching as a genuine art form. And Ancelotti spoke afterward as calmly as if he had just stepped out for an espresso, not survived a knockout thriller. Quote, "This was the most complete match we played in the tournament. Early on, we tried to control in midfield, but it didn't work. Japan defended too tightly, so we changed at halftime to get into the box better, cross more, push higher. That was the evolution. We struggled to find space early, but we solved it really well." End quote. And do not, for 1 second, forget about Japan, because they earned a deep bow of respect. Coach Hajime Moriyasu built a disciplined, courageous team with a real identity. His first half plan was very nearly flawless. 5 defenders strangling the lanes between Brazil's midfielders, then lightning on the counter. Sano's goal was no accident. It was the product of a system built to strike Brazil exactly where it hurt. And here's the heartbreak. Japan have never once won a knockout game at a World Cup. Never. They have bowed out early, tournament after tournament, and now again, the same pain, all over again, but the gap is shrinking. Moriyasu, voice low, but brimming with pride, said afterward, quote, "The gap between us is closing. Brazil are a top-class team, but we are absolutely getting closer to that level. There were stretches where Japan truly controlled this game. But if we want to beat the Giants, we have to get even better." End quote. And he hinted he'll stay on and keep building this team. As for the numbers, this was Brazil's 12th win in 15 meetings with Japan, 2 draws, and just 1 solitary loss, a single defeat in that recent friendly. Brazil march on into the round of 16, where they'll face the winner of Ivory Coast versus Norway at a stadium in New Jersey. But here's the catch. Brazil have some real worrying to do about personnel. Casemiro, leg injury late. Lucas Paqueta, that left ankle. 2 losses that are anything but small. But whatever comes next, this game, this comeback, is going to be remembered for a long, long time. Remembered for Kaishu Sano's gorgeous solo goal, robbing it at midfield and firing past Alisson Becker. Remembered for Casemiro's thundering headed equalizer. Remembered for Bruno Guimaraes' genius through ball. And remembered for Gabriel Martinelli's ice-cold finish deep in stoppage, the one that kissed Suzuki's hand, clipped the post, and rolled in anyway. And most of all, remembered for the substitution masterclass from Carlo Ancelotti, the man who turned a dead-end first half into a full-blown onslaught, who turned danger into safety, and despair into pure delirium. And here's a thought to leave you with. Brazil first lifted this trophy generations ago when a 17-year-old kid named Pelé scored twice in a World Cup final. And now, a new generation is carrying the weight of a nation's dream, chasing a 6th star after more than 2 decades of waiting. The road ahead is still a long one. But after what they pulled off in Houston, nobody is underestimating Carlo Ancelotti's Brazil anymore. Because sometimes, football only needs one single moment to change everything. And under those lights, one moment from Gabriel Martinelli changed the lives of everyone lucky enough to be there. Thanks for watching, everybody.